had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast. We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast.
John, nice to be with you again. Now, just to clear up what has happened since last time around, when we discussed various elements of disclosure, we kind of arrived at the conclusion that quite a lot of it was easily debunkable. And we sort of thought that this was going to be a psyop of some kind where they would literally pull the rug out from under it and we would be sent back 50 years to the last time there was any sort of disclosure and nothing would change. And obviously, what's happened since then is very different because now we're at a point that's difficult to believe with the amount of playtime this has had on all sorts of media. And even though I get the impression that most people don't really care, in terms of what's happening internally to the American government, cogs are turning and things are moving forward. And just to go over what we've seen, the Arrow US government group mandated hearings that are officially investigating this UFO, UAP equipment, personnel. All sorts of sightings have been confirmed as having been investigated internally by the US government. We're now at a stage where are we at in the Pentagon and what's happening internally in the US government and what's going to change, do you think?
Obviously, it's a very wide topic in many different facets of detail, but let's just focus in on the first couple of words in your sentence, that we assume that this would be a CIA, DOD psyop to pull the rug from under us. I think it's the actual opposite. I think that this is all orchestrated by them for a slow release. It is the impression I'm left with now. And what they are doing is trying to muddy the waters around it all by making Grush more believable. I think Grush be some sort of plant. I think that he was set up and put in this position to find these things, to release them to Congress in a slow drip fashion, because the slow drip fashion is he's not a direct witness, but he has spoken and knows direct witnesses, and he says they're there. Now, he's done that under oath, so his credibility is quite high, and it would be because as far as he's concerned, he's doing the right thing. He's found these things that are being hidden and he's bringing it to the attention of the American people. What he doesn't know is, or I think, is that this is orchestrated. They wanted him to find those things. They wanted him to speak to those people, and they want to lay the groundwork. This is military industrial complex I'm talking about. DOD, CIA, it's all integrated. So they want to orchestrate support from the Congress and the people for them to have more funding to build spaceships and spend more money on weapons, not only for the Earth now, but for the solar system and the cosmos. They don't want to just rule over Earth. They want to start pushing their weight around beyond Earth. And I think the best way to fund that is to make people believe that there is a national security issue with these craft are creating, and place a stakeholder in there that can be trusted and that everyone can fall behind and believe. And then what you describe as pulling the rug from under our feet is then putting a rug under our feet to then pull out later on. I think they're setting up the scene for them to say, right, we're going to need $400 trillion now to protect us from these potential aliens. Here's all the craft that we've got. They're all meanies. They're all terrible. We need more funding from everyone. So everyone get behind us and start following our lead in regards to this subject. I don't believe that the military industrial complex would allow Grush to even walk out the door with half the stuff he's saying, because it's been such a heavily protected, compartmentalized secret for so long. How could it all fall apart all of a sudden? How would you do it? You would allow someone to do that?
Okay, help me out with how the whole thing is fitting together then, because what you're suggesting is that there is a group, a clandestine group of people who've had this technology for a long time, that's been reverse engineered, and that they have, just as Eisenhower was warning us about in 1961, they've had this technology for so long that they've had a huge amount of control over the government. And in fact, they have orchestrated a cover-up, possibly using the idea of UFOs originally to cover up experimental craft, reverse engineered or not. But now we're at a stage where you're saying that they're going to rejig the public's mind so they can take money for the protection of people from outer space.
I think it's wider than just weaponry. I think you've got to remember that the military-industrial complex is not just making weapons. They have all the oil barons in place. They have all the tech giant guys in place. They have all the governments in place. They obviously have come to the realization that the dependency on natural gas and oil and so forth is finite. It's never gonna last. It's time to set up a new stall. And the new stall is 0-point energy. The new stall is anti-gravitics, weaponry, and all that sort of stuff. And that will obviously lead to a new economy and so forth. And then they'll make their money that way. You have to start somewhere. So to take all those lifelines of currency that used to be dependent on the oil, information technology side of things, weapons, whatever, they have to set up a new marketplace now. And the new marketplace is going to be driven on 0-point energy, on anti-gravitics and laser beam weapons. You know, it's faster than light communications and so forth. I mean, how do you set up a new stall? You have to burn the old stall down, don't you? But you have to burn the old stall down in a way. Huh?
But hang on a minute, because it seems from these hearings that a vast amount of the people in government don't have any idea about any of this technology.
By design.
So how are you saying that one half, it's not even a half, is it, that there's 10% of the elites?
You do it nefariously through supporting Senate candidates, basically, are the most powerful governors and government people around. So what you do is you fund their campaigns and you fund their opponents if they're not following. If they're not going to lean towards your requirements, then you'll fund their opponent, and then they'll lean towards your requirements. So they have the backing of these senators unknowingly. So these senators see them as a business. They just see Lockheed Martin. They don't see Lockheed Martin's secret technologies in the background doing all these sort of things. They just see, we're going to sponsor you. I think it's 3 million is the limit that they can fund a senator. We'll give you 3 million for your campaign. They're not going to say, we want you to help us, we want you to help us ring fence this sector so we can take it. They're not going to be that obvious. They're just going to say,
we're losing the thread of what you're saying, because you're saying they're going to start drip feeding this technology down.
Yes, it's already started. It started many years ago, obviously. You know, how have we jumped so quickly from abacuses to supercomputers in the space of, 100 years?
A supercomputer doesn't give anybody any freedom.
No, but we're not talking about freedom. Freedom's not on the cards here.
But faster than light, anti-gravitics is most definitely freedom. If I had a car that could fly straight into space, that would definitely be freedom.
Yeah, but who makes the car and who are you buying it off? Who's the money going to?
I don't think they care about money. These people have the power to wipe out the population of planet Earth, don't they? Why do they care about money?
Population, but they do. They do have that power. I agree with you. But we're assets to them. We help make more money for them. We help give them the power they have.
But I don't see how that's true. I mean, if you're talking about complete technical superiority, you don't care about money because everyone is potentially your slave.
You're making an assumption you don't care about money. These people aren't driven like that.
But what I mean is, if you have complete control, if you can turn around and say, I don't care about your armies, your nuclear missiles, I can turn them to dust in a second, you are an emperor. You don't need money. The Queen doesn't carry money because she doesn't need any.
Well, control is a very loose term. I mean, control is either you have direct control or you have indirect control. I think they've had indirect control for decades. And indirect control is controlling companies, controlling legislation in government.
Let me put forward an alternative. I mean, to me, what we're talking about is that the military-industrial complex is not the top level, in my personal opinion. There are the banks and people like this operate at a level above them because they have been bribing everybody, keeping everybody in line forever, for hundreds of years. And it's okay, you can show up with this new technology and everything else, but there's a huge amount of loyalty going back to the banks, I think. And that something like the military-industrial complex has to stay in the background because it cannot be allowed to disrupt all the deals that were made leading up to the First and Second World War on the redistribution of power between America, Israel, and all the rest of them. They agreed a very long time ago that the Second World War would be the handover of control of oil to the US. And that was a very big part of that deal. And to me, the idea that they would start giving 0 point energy is completely in the face of something like what they're trying to do is...
They're not going to give it to you, are they? They're not going to give you any of these things. And in regards to
No, they're not even going to admit them. They will charge for electricity like they charge for oil now, and they won't even have to make it. They'll have high technology generation of electricity, and they will literally be cutting the cost. And companies like Exxon and Texaco will just take over where they are now, but they'll just do it with electricity, and they'll do it the world over.
You're more or less saying what I'm saying, that they will do it. And to your first point in regards to the military industrial complex being under the control of the banks, they are one and the same. They are the same fraternity of people. I don't think they are. I'm of the opinion they are, because these people mix in the same circles. They have vast control of many assets. They have vast control of governments based on the money that they're giving them. So they are in the same fraternity. They meet at Davos or whatever they meet, and they all have a little underground chat or whatever they do. They wear their special robes, whatever they do. I don't know. But they are part of the same fraternity.
But the difference in what I'm saying is that I can't see a reason to disclose anything.
There's no reason for them to directly disclose, but it's not just them, is it? They are a very small group of individuals who are extremely powerful, but there are also groups of individuals who would out them the minute they get a chance to. There could be even outside influence from the extraterrestrials. Who knows? We don't know. We're speculating here. This is our wall of speculation.
Saying that the military industrial complex, why are they using Grush to do this? What are they trying to gain?
Because you need to bring everyone up to speed on what's going on, to what you are controlling on what's going on. I.e., you need to bring everyone up to speed that there are things such as unidentified aerial phenomenon that we have no idea about, so we can make guesses. So let's open the conversation. Let's say, right, we have recovered some of these unidentified aerial.
That's what I find confusing.
We have recovered some of these.
They are admitting they've had this stuff for decades.
Yes.
I can't understand why you'd want to do that.
Because you're probably going to be forced to do it. So what you might as well do is do a control burn and stop the fire spreading much further down the line, and just say, fine, we admit we've got this. Yeah, we'll start here. We won't go into how we got those craft. We won't go into the people we've killed to get those craft. We won't go into all the nefarious things that we've seen or have been a part of to get these craft and to get this understanding. But we will say we've got the craft. And we'll hope that you won't go into the questions on how did you get them. And even though we will, but we can deny that. But what we can do is we can say, because it's controlled. I don't think, I know that such secrets cannot be kept for such a long time by individuals. But at the same time, you must build into your theories that this secret's not going to stay secret forever, and you must have a plan. And if you've had 6 decades to plan this, you must have had something in place to then implement as and when.
Because where I'm sitting, to me, the 1961 presidential exit speech that Eisenhower was giving was basically saying, we've already lost control. That's what he was saying. So it's when I watch him talk about that, that's what he seems to come across to me as saying, is that we've already lost control. He's just saying it in quite a subtle way, because you've got to bear in mind that that's his last hurrah. He doesn't get to do anything else. He says it in a very, very subtle way, just saying, and he says it will persist. That the attempts at control, whether wanted or unwanted, it will persist. Because the simple truth is, it's a bit like, let's just say that I gave you an AI secretary tomorrow, right? That's GPT-4, right? This secretary knows every single fact on planet Earth. She knows everything. She never misses an appointment. She never misses anything. You've got to bear in mind that whether you even notice it or not, she's going to take control of your actions. because of her capability. And isn't that what we're looking at with the military-industrial complex? These guys are not
trust. But that's based on the trust. So let's assume I'm the people and the AI is them. Yeah.
Well,
And
I don't think
I have to trust that AI knows everything. Yeah. I have to trust that it's doing everything I want it to do. And for it to do that, it has to demonstrate that. So how do you demonstrate UFOs and their capabilities? You release it and you say, now we've yielded this power and we can use this technology to have free energy. We can use this technology to traverse the stars.
I can't see why you'd want to tell anyone that at all. It makes no sense to me.
Because you want to open up the market. You want to make more of these things. You want to build more of them. You want to sell more of them.
If we can make free energy, why is anyone going to pay you for it?
Because it takes infrastructure to make it. It takes materials to make it. It takes manpower to build these devices. You're creating a whole new market
across the bloody coast. You're telling me they've been building all those wind farms across the coast.
Well, they haven't been in the know, have they? They don't know what's going on behind the scenes. These guys are trying to save the world without knowing in the background we had the technology to save the world 60 years ago. But we didn't know how to use it 60 years ago. Now we might have got a little bit more information on how to use these instruments now, but we didn't have it 60 years ago. So they're not going to tell us.
So is Grush a fall guy? He doesn't know what he's doing. He's just been
I don't think he's a fall guy at all. I think he is the tool. He's unknowingly the tool, but he's the tool for disclosure, for their disclosure, not for the people, but for the military-industrial complex to start cashing in. That's what I think it is. I think the Tic Tac is one of their craft. I think the gimbal's one of their craft. I think they deliberately did that to set this all up. You got to remember, these people don't think in short terms. They think in years and decades. So they will start setting.
Confused about what you're saying. I just can't understand how it makes any sense. To me, if I was going to do this, I would want to move from oil to 0 point or whatever you want to call it, and I would do it in a completely different way. I would do something like a terrorist attack on a nuclear power station, so that I have an excuse to militarize all power stations. And then I would slide that technology in without other people knowing and just use the existing infrastructure and just increase my profits. The last thing I'd want to do is get someone to go out on TV and say, by the way, we've had stuff that makes energy creation totally painless for 6 decades and we never told you. I don't understand how anyone's going to recover from that.
Because it's not going to be that. It's not going to be like that, is it? Because yes, they will implement some sort of disaster to use it as an excuse to implement these new technologies. But what is the disaster going to be? No one knows. Yeah, what we're doing is being introduced to a phenomenon, into a technology that no one has had any clue about. And we don't know how much they know. We can assume they've had it for 60 years, but having it for 60 years is one thing. Knowing how to use it for 60 years is another. And if you were using it for 60 years flat, as a general purpose power source and general purpose craft, you'd see a lot more of them, and you'd get some very strange images of power generation that you couldn't know where it came from. There'll be so many anomalies, which there've been anomalies. People have seen craft for many years. How do you know they're all alien? They're probably not all alien. Some of them
I'm not
probably alien.
More at all. But okay. But what I mean is this not? Do you not feel that this is more likely? If you think about the 9/11 thing, right? We know for a fact that the first time they tried to do the first time they tried to demolish the Twin Towers, they wanted one to fall over into the other, so they both fell down. That was in several children's cartoons back before the 90s. It was in children's cartoons in the 80s. Then when that failed, we started seeing in the mid-90s in children's cartoons 2 buildings, Twin Towers, crumbling to the ground, exactly like 9/11. So are we not certain that this is a kind of setup for some sort of interplanetary?
I'm not on the bandwagon. I'm not on the 9/11 bandwagon, to be honest with you.
Right.
Yeah. I'm not on that yet. I disagree with it, but
But what I mean is,
you're assuming that there is a setup. I couldn't imagine someone within their own country would do that to their countrymen, and then think they can get away with it because someone will out them. It takes many people to run that sort of operation, and one of them will have a moral, intersection where they'll think, this is really effed up.
Sure,
I've got to tell someone.
Okay, but
There's too many cogs in that machine.
It's true that these things happened in children's TV shows.
Yeah, but they're playing the odds, aren't they? Who knows how? Who knows how the Simpsons predict things? But you've got to remember that they predict many things that don't come true as well. And the Simpsons, I think, has got in the thousands of episodes now. So you do the odds, and some things are going to come true, some aren't. I'm not sold on it yet. I mean, I think it's very odd that these things are coincidences. How much do you believe in coincidence or not? That's down to the individual.
Okay, let's put that.
It's not like active I would look down.
But do you not feel that this is more likely when you're opening up the idea of interplanetary visitors in people's minds, not just in the public, but in the eyes of the existing however you want to say it, the existing establishment that aren't part of more advanced secret societies or whatever they are? Surely what you're really doing is you're opening up pathways, as you were saying earlier, for funding against interplanetary invasion and things like that. Right?
Well, I mean, the first thought a human would get when they see a craft that's millions, thousands of years more advanced is you'll have an insecurity complex about it. You'd think, well, if these creatures have this technology, then if they were to come and attack, we'll be done for. So you're already starting off.
We're getting into the
military recovered those craft.
We're getting an idea into the average senator's head that we need to start building spaceships, as you were saying earlier. So we're telling the public we need to start building spaceships, and we're telling the senators. So does this sound like they're bringing up some sort of argument so that if they were to do something like, they could literally simulate an alien invasion and use it to suck a huge ton of money out of the world, basically?
That would work if you wipe about 80%, 90% of people out, because a lot of people will see through that. And a lot of people are starting to question it now anyway. The people that are diehard conspiracy theorists would spread that word quickly. With the internet, it would spread quickly, and a lot of people catch on to it, and they would question it. That is this real? How realistic can they make it? Because you've got to remember, Bluebeam, if we're talking about Bluebeam here, Bluebeam is based on a fake alien invasion with a messiah-like character coming to save the Earth. That's what Bluebeam's kind of based on.
Well, I'm not necessarily Bluebeam's even a real thing. I mean, I don't, the origin of...
No, it's a theory. It's a conspiracy theory, of course. It's a conspiracy theory. But if we're going to talk about it, we might as well give it a title that kind of matches it, which is the Bluebeam theory, which is let's have an alien invasion faked by ourselves.
I'm just trying to get to the bottom of why, because I still don't understand the answer you're giving me about why this is being made public. If you're trying to move over from burning oil to an easier solution, why would you tell everyone?
Control. It's control. It's control. It's more control than you had before. Because now, you're not pulling in different elements. You're not pulling in people that own oil companies into your gang. You're not pulling in people that own tech companies into your gang. You are the gang. You own all the technology. You own all the antigraphitics. You own all the point energy.
If you want to maintain power. Knowledge is power. Why would you tell everyone?
Because you want to be in control of everyone. And you're going to tell everyone, you can't have this unless you sign on with me. Unless you pay me money, I will be your savior. Unless you pay me money, I will give you free energy. You are still in control. You hold the keys. But they have to pay you to gain access to that.
To do that. I just don't understand why you tell them that. Why wouldn't you just tell them you're using wind power or solar power? Or nuclear power?
Because everyone knows that wind power can only generate so much power. So if you're not going to switch off all the power stations and go, we've got new wind turbine technology that will power us all. I mean, that's one scenario, but you're going to get someone that's going to police that and check that, you're going to say, well,
But
I've got a
also,
reading on
if
this,
you
and it's only
simulate-
generating.
If you simulated a terrorist attack on a nuclear power station and killed, irradiated 1 million people in France or something, you could get military control of all the power stations and stop the press going anywhere near them, and then just move them over to
Too
zero
many,
point.
too many cogs in that machine. One will break and spill the beans.
Don't be
Too many
ridiculous.
cogs.
Look at the
And you've got to
man-
remember, getting rid of nuclear waste.
Spill the beans. They don't even know what's going on. Most of them are just doing what they're told.
And that's my point. Who are the whistleblowers? They're all military people. They're the only people that are on the ground. The only people there that know have any first, second, third hand knowledge are military people, because they're the ones running those operations. And those people are whistleblowers. They are cogs in that machine that have broken and have gone
I
off.
still don't understand what you're saying. I don't understand why we would need to know how they're going to generate this power.
Because you have to legitimize it. If you're going to bring things out to the masses, it has to be above board. It has to be open and understood by all elements of your society, by the scientists, by the general population, by the engineers, by the politicians. They all have to be on the same page and go, right, we have these phenomenon. We understand that we have a number of technologies that demonstrate these technologies. We have a number of technologies in our possession that demonstrate these beyond belief capabilities.
Okay, well,
Now let's understand it. Now we're going to be able to pour in all the scientists above board. Now we're going to be able to pour in all the engineers, the general population of engineers, the general population of scientists, and then we're all going to work this technology for the betterment. Now, who's going to have the handle on these? Who's going to own all the companies?
I've never ever seen these people act in that way ever. Why you're telling me that they're going to open 0 point?
How do you know how they act? No one knows if they act. No one knows how they operate. We're speculating how they operate. I'm speculating how they work. You're speculating how it's going to work.
Technology to the universities so that everybody knows how to make it work that's doing a science degree.
Everyone will know how to make it work. Everyone will understand how it works. Not everyone will understand how to produce it. It's a trade secret. Who's going to ring fence
What are
that?
you talking about?
They
You
are.
can't patent something you reverse engineered from another planet.
Why
Of course
can't
you
you?
can't. It's not your idea.
Excuse me, it's not from our planet. It is our idea if it lands on there, and we found out a way with our
I
materials.
don't
Like,
think you wouldn't be able to do that at all.
I,
The whole point of a patent
I'll
is
agree
that-
to disagree. I think they can ring fence it. They'll find a way to ring fence it. They will
Why
find
would
a way
you
to ring
disclose
fence it.
it? I just can't see what the point you're trying to make about why they're disclosing it. It makes no sense to me.
Because if you're going to have a new economy anyway, based on free energy, based on technology that we've never had before, then you might as well have the full reins and ring fence it for yourself. As a company, as an entity, you will ring fence that, and then you will draw funds and power out of that. You will draw so much funds and power out of it, you will still keep control. Because you've got to remember that as much as we rely on oil and gas to run our world, it's finite. It will never last forever. It won't. We know it won't. Scientifically proven it won't. So there has to be an end game, doesn't it? And if you are one of those people that holds the keys to those industries, you want to future-proof your income. What better way to future-proof your income than having technology that's obviously been stolen from possibly alien entities? Who knows?
I just can't understand why
You have to future-proof it.
You could just make out that someone
I think it's quite simple to understand. I don't see how it's not. I don't see how we are. You got to remember, we are discussing something that we have no knowledge about. No one has any knowledge about except the people that are doing it, and they are few and far between. And they're so compartmentalized that no one knows what the other guy does anyway. So all we can do is go by what we've seen so far. And what have we seen so far? What we've seen so far is that they are entities within the US government that control a lot of wars, they control a lot of banks, and they control a lot of governments around the world. Not just their own country, but around the world. And they've used that and leveraged it to make more war, to get more power, and to make more money. Now, that way of waging war will change, because as we technically advance, we have to find new ways of killing each other. And what better way to kill someone than to shoot a laser beam at them? What better way to portray that you're protecting someone from someone else with a laser beam? You know, time moves on, technology moves on, social structures move on. People have to move with the times, and so do they.
Well,
that's my theory. Now, you've got to remember, this is my theory. This is not something that I think is, a general theory. No, I think it could be easily argued, and it is being argued by yourself. But you've got to remember, we don't know enough to make a solid theory on it. We have to draw from what we've seen. And if you draw from the history of this whole cover-up, is that these people want to stay in power forever. These entities, because it can't just be an individual, because no one lives forever. So there must be entities, and the entities are obviously a very close-knit circle that only promote within. And fine, I'm assuming that's how they work. So they want to keep control for the next 100, 200, 300 years, whatever. How do you do that? You move with the times. And if you have technology that you're starting to understand that could give you more power and control, forget the term free energy. It's not free. It is free. It's 0 point. It doesn't take anything to produce it, and it doesn't expel any harmful gases or whatever. But at the same point, it's technology. It is technology that needs to be built. It needs an infrastructure placed around it. It needs people to run it. So you can make money out of it. Anti-gravitics. You can, think of all the things you could do with anti-gravitics. You could have industry in space. We no longer have to have industry we can have it all off planet. These sort of things will always have money generated from it. We'll always rely on some sort of currency to pay people to do work, to give their time to work. That's the way it's been until we find a better way. Who knows if that's around the corner or not? So it's just control. That I know you don't understand why they would do it, but it's a long game form of control. Invest for the future. Set these things in motion now. That's my theory.
I mean, to me, somebody like Elon Musk, for instance, who's just talking about changing everything over to electricity, which is a technology that's older than petrol, right? They're just wrapping it up in a different ball. So they're going to spend the next 50 years changing everything to electrical. Now, as soon as you bring out a way of generating electricity or whatever, or power that's completely clean, that will change the whole concept of something like Tesla. Because instead of burning oil to get that electricity down the cables to your car, that car is suddenly zero emission. In every part of its operation, it becomes completely zero emission. Now, that would be an astonishing thing to happen. I mean, what would happen to the share price of Tesla, I can't even begin to imagine. Or Jaguar or any of these other people. The problem is, to me, is that if you look at the way that technology is going, something like, traveling across the Atlantic, we were way faster doing that 40 years ago than we are now. It seems to me that they're kind of trying to sell us inferior technology. They're using the sort of global warming, climate change card to bring technology back a bit. And the only technology that really seems to be progressing, I mean, nobody's trying to make a space vehicle that can get to Mars using electrogravitics. Everybody's doing it with rocket fuel. They don't even talk about electrogravitics. And then suddenly we've got this whole thing happening in the middle of the Pentagon that's talking about other forms of propulsion. And yet, to me, the people like Bezos, Musk, Branson have all been people trying to keep that kind of technology at bay. And suddenly we're just doing this huge flip where we're starting to talk about technology that makes rockets ridiculous. So what's going to happen to Musk's Mars plan? This time in 6 months. Aren't people going to start saying, Elon, why the hell have you been mucking about with rockets? I thought you were supposed to be a technologist.
Well, the foundation's already there. SpaceX is already an entity that aims to go to another planet. So if he's made aware of technology that can expedite that plan, he'll jump on board. He will still have SpaceX. SpaceX still have the infrastructure and understanding of what they want to do. They still build spacecraft. Just because you change the power source doesn't mean that you cannot build. You're not going to carry on building
You
spacecraft.
change the way that rockets fly, the whole design of SpaceX would be a complete waste of time. SpaceX is 150 meters tall for something the size of a greenhouse with the two blokes in. I mean,
But that 150 meters could all be cargo space now. It doesn't need the fuel
it wouldn't
anymore.
even
It doesn't need the
that
rocket
shape anymore. It wouldn't need to
Little
go into
box.
orbit. And you're talking about a complete paradigm shift. The whole concept of, if you really did have something, I don't even pretend to understand how the technology that they might have would work. But these things don't fly into orbit to get orbital velocity to stay in orbit. They don't get affected by gravity. They just go straight up in the air. The concept of a rocket would be gone. There would be no advantage to anything that SpaceX has ever built. It would be completely pointless.
I wouldn't go that far. I think the advantage of crew compartments, understanding how to survive in space,
No, it would be totally irrelevant
long
from the
period.
start. You could have as thick a wall as you wanted. You wouldn't have to worry about the Van
Yeah,
Allen
but they are
radiation.
brand
You
name.
could make it out of lead.
So who do you want making your spaceships? Who do you want making your anti-gravitic spaceships? Joe Bloggs that you've never heard of, or SpaceX who tried to get into space for ages, and now they've got this new technology on making this, whiz bang fantastic spacecraft. They are a brand, and we still rely on brands because we trust brands.
I think it would absolutely
You
destroy
can't
Elon
dismiss
Musk.
them. You can't dismiss them that quickly.
I think it would destroy Elon Musk if this stuff came out.
I think it would make him.
I don't. I just think that everyone would think that he's been barking up the wrong tree for ages, and that he should be able to figure this stuff out.
Yeah, that is certainly a possibility, but I can't see that an established brand that relies on one element is Tesla, electric-powered cars, and two, SpaceX, which is a company that wants to industrialize space, essentially, would ever suffer from being given technology that would make the cars free to run, make the space travel in the industry and space a lot easier to accomplish. And if you're already an established brand aiming to do that and doing it, why wouldn't people carry on buying into it? Because you're already a trusted brand.
Seems pretty feeble to.
It makes sense to me from a business perspective, from a consumer perspective. I'm not going to consume something that is completely unknown. This company has come out of the blue and making these. Let's just be hypothetical. They make these space cruise liners. If Royal Caribbean told me we're gonna make space cruise liners, we're gonna go around Mars, I'd much rather be on the Royal Caribbean space cruise liner than Joe Bloggs' space cruise liner that's come out of nowhere. They are an established brand. Yeah, they know how to entertain people in one space.
Between building a bloody ship and flying around Mars, I don't really know what to say to you. There is absolutely no commonality in that whatsoever. If you wanted to get in a,
How is it? How do you entertain a whole? How do you create a what are they called? What category does cruise liner come under? They are tourism. How do you make a tourism? How do you make tourism out of space? Do you just send people to say, here's? Do you just let people just fly around freely on their own and just do what they want? No. You have set people
inside something built by somebody who builds flipping aircraft carriers if you're going into space, personally.
Well, exactly, but so do Royal Caribbean build ships that are bigger than anything in the world.
They're just a tourist company. They buy boats.
They sponsor shipyards to build them. They know the shipyards to build them. We're not talking about that. They know how to lay out a cruise ship so it's comfortable, so it's nice, so you have a great time, entertaining areas. They know how to do these things because that's their business.
Well, personally, to me, I think if you disclosed you had 0 point energy, the entire world's economy would collapse.
I don't think so.
I think the whole place would just go absolutely mental.
Not at all.
Because, I mean, what would happen to BP?
People will evolve and adjust accordingly.
What happened to BP? Every single refinery is suddenly just something that's going to cost billions to dismantle.
All those trillions of pounds that they have made in the past will be thrown into the 0 point energy and producing it and distributing it around. And then obviously they will then take money off of that.
Something more like the bank bailouts, whereby...
Or they might diversify. They might go into something else.
Right, these guys have got 175,000 people working for them. So what we're going to do is we're going to take all the money from the people, which is what they always do, and they'll say, right, all these refineries have to be responsibly dismantled in an environmental way, yada-da, and it's going to cost 700 billion. And the British people are going to have to pay to dismantle them because BP's a British company. And it'll be something like that, I think.
Yeah, and then what? Then all that money you've made off of them, you'll re-diversify your business into something else. Let's go mine the moon for precious metals.
But I still don't see
BP all of a sudden.
You would want to tell the universities what you've really got. I mean, surely they'll just disclose something really menial and useless. They won't disclose what they've really got.
Because if we are to believe what we are told, that this is all compartmentalized, how to reverse engineer these sort of things, you are limited to the knowledge base that you have. You cannot tell everyone, I need someone that specializes in this type of physics, and I need 20 of them to come and work on this project. You can't do it. You have to have 1 or 2 people that specialize in that subject. They're compartmentalized and only work on a certain element of that project, and then another set of group of scientists. And they're never the best, most well-renowned scientists. They are taken right out of school, more or less, right out of qualification, and then they are parachuted into this compartmentalized role that they have, and then they're drawn out of it. Now, if you open source this to many more brains, many more people with different ideas, then you start to diversify what your approach to these problems and understanding them. You have a much wider net of people that can all put their heads together and think out the problem. You don't have a secret cabal of people that are stuck in a little room, that are given a sheet of paper and you've got to do this specific thing. I want you to work this specific thing out, and then I want you to pass it on to this guy who you're never not going to know what they're going to do, but they're going to do something else. You're never going to get anywhere fast like that. What you're going to get somewhere fast is that everyone's working on it. The millions of brains and minds are going to work on it, and it's going to come to a conclusion a lot quicker. The solution.
But you've lost control.
No, not at all. How have you lost control? There's still institutions that these people work on. There are still governments that these people...
If some bloke in Serbia comes up with a better way of doing it than you'd ever even conceived, what are you going to do?
What have they done to people that have found free energy before? They've got rid of them. What about all those guys that have found, the guy that found free power from hydrogen to put in his car? Disappeared.
Well, I mean, the thing about him...
Why do you think that's going to change? Power is still power. People that have power will still yield it.
I thought you just said they were going to disclose free energy.
Well, they are going to disclose it, but if you're telling me that someone else is going to have an alternative that's not going to cost anything, then obviously it'll have to be peer reviewed, wouldn't it? It'll have to be proven, and it's going to have level of investment. All those hurdles are going to be blocked at some point by people with more money and power.
That's why that would never happen. Because you see, the thing about the military industrial complex is they don't have to give a toss about health and safety. They don't have to give a toss about peer review. They can do anything they want whenever they want. And that's how they've got so far ahead. They are not crippled by the rest of us.
But you overestimate the kindness and generosity of humanity, of humans. Yeah? Or underestimate, I should say, sorry. These guys are human beings. They have a limited lifespan. They die and someone else takes over. Now, that someone else who takes over is not a clone of the last person. He is a different person with different ideas, different wants and needs. And eventually, when all those individuals die out, there could be one person who goes, you know what? we need to diversify and expand. We can't live in this secret underground world anymore. I want to bring this out to the people, and I want to monetize it. Right? That's thinking about that. That's thinking beyond my self greed. That's thinking of securing the future and future proofing my power, my money. Like I said,
killed the bloke with the gas powered car for. It's that kind of giving everything back to the people attitude that makes them kill people.
I'm not saying give anything back to the people. I never said that. They're not going to give anything back. They're going to sell to the people. They're selling this to the people.
Universities how it works. You've lost it.
How have you lost it? Because you're telling people how to understand something, right? Most people understand how a tap works. Well, a lot of people, okay? It's either gravity fed or it's pumped, isn't it? Well, water is pumped through a pipe and then it's pushed out by the tap, okay? Most people that study that know how hydrodynamics work and how water flows through pipes, and it flows through faster, a thinner pipe than a wider pipe. People that make pipes and people that make water pumps aren't out of business, are they? Scientists know how water flows through tight spaces and through wide spaces, and the understanding is there. You have to give everyone a common understanding.
Someone's got to bring it to you.
Huh?
Water is a finite resource. Someone's got to bring it to you. As soon as you tell me how to build a fusion reactor in my basement, I'm not going to bother with the mains anymore, am I?
Was anyone going to tell you how to build a fusion reactor?
I'm not understanding what you mean about disclosing then. I really don't understand what you're saying. These people.
It's a controlled disclosure. Now, what I mean by controlled disclosure is we are going to give you this much, but you're never going to know certain elements of that, ever. They're never going to disclose certain elements of it. We're going to tell you it's all top secret and you cannot know because it will give away stuff to our enemies. That's how they'll shape it. That's how they'll approach it. They will give so much and that's it. They'll draw the line there. And it will just be drip fed. Now, how they do that? You've got to remember, this is speculation. This is us, without any knowledge of this, implanting how we would do it, how my mindset looks at it. Your mindset looks at it a different way to mine, but that's exactly the whole point. We're sat here not knowing the facts and just assuming.
You just closed. How you got this technology. Let's just say they got it in, for example, let's say they got it from Roswell, right, in 47. And by 1961, Eisenhower already knew they'd reverse engineered this stuff. They've had technology that prevents carbon being released into the atmosphere for 62 years, and they never told anyone. Now, surely that makes them either insane, because it's their children suffering too, or it means that the whole carbon thing is being way overplayed. You can't just throw those away. People aren't just going to forget about this. They're going to say, what the hell are you talking about? You've had this technology for 60 years. What about all the petrol we've just burned? How are you going to get around things like that?
Yeah, but you're assuming that they're going to disclose how long they've known about it. They could just say we've not known about it. That's why we're disclosing it. We don't know anything about it, right? So what you're going to do is you're going to know about it, but you're going to tell everyone you don't know about it, and you're still going to profit off it, because what you're going to do is get everyone understanding that it exists for the first thing. Acknowledging it exists is the first step. Yeah, how you monetize it is how they think. Whatever crazy way they have of monetizing it, they will find a way to monetize it. Now, I'm only speculating and guessing how they would do that, but to open it up to everyone, to make everyone aware that it exists, then start to get people thinking, what can I do with it?
Okay. So
I can go traveling the world.
Okay, so so before you can even disclose technology that's been captured or anything else, you have to disclose there are visitors to this planet from other worlds with high technology.
Exactly. That's a distraction in itself, isn't it?
The first thing people are going to start saying, assuming, it depends how completely locked down the media really is. Right, and as far as I can tell, the media is
I wouldn't say lockdown control.
down. It's completely locked down. You cannot put anything out unless, certainly into the serious mainstream, unless they wish it. But people are going to start asking questions like, well, hang on a minute. You know, if you want to think about this as a computer game, like Civilization, that computer game, if you was a situation where UFOs flew over the board of the game and you could shoot one down and advance 3,000 years of technology in 6 weeks, surely every government's been trying to do that forever anyway. Right?
Yeah, so they failed. Because obviously they failed, haven't they, so far? Because if they'd succeeded, especially anyone other than the Americans had succeeded, America wouldn't exist anymore, would it really?
Well, you're assuming that America is an entity to itself in terms of...
I'm not assuming that at all. I know that that's not the case. The entity is the industrialist, is the businessman, is the finance sector. They are the entity that run the world. They're not limited by borders or language or religion.
If a spaceship went down in Paraguay and the Americans didn't know about it, and it was a more advanced spaceship than anything the Americans had, if you kept that under wraps and gave it to the local university, you could overtake the Americans.
But that wouldn't happen, would it? Because someone would sell you out, and a government of one source or the other would confiscate that.
Well, you might say that about the Americans. If these guys were all military, etc., I think it would be possible to do that. You know, if you're talking about, let's just say that the Americans were scanning for, neutrinos, like Hecker was saying. What if somebody came along with something way beyond that, and it crashed in Paraguay, and they reverse engineered that? What would happen?
Well, the fact that you're assuming that they would get a grasp of the technology and understand how the physics works within 10 years? I doubt that would happen. You know, the fact that we're being told that these things are just operating on a level of physics that we don't understand, based on our level of physics that we understand from our solar system, and based on the fact that the things that we've heard that these craft are controlled by consciousness, that these beings communicate by consciousness. These are two things that we have no understanding of at all. And to start from point A to get to point B on that is not going to take you 10 years. It's going to take you a lifetime. It depends on the resources of your country, obviously, and how much money you're going to pour into actually researching that level of technology. Some people have limitations in that sector.
I mean, I don't know that's a hell of a lot of assumption in there. But I don't really know that's necessary. What I'm trying to say is that you're going to have so many questions in the media about what's everyone been doing all this time. And I mean,
who controls the media?
Well, if that's really true, if the media really is controlled to that level, you've got to ask why the
disclosure. They'll be outed straight away. Because they won't be asking the right questions and people will pick up on it. And they already have. The people have already, that's already happening. That's already happening. You can see since we've had this hearing, that only one major news network, which is not even a major news network, they've actually come out of nowhere. News Nation has just, it's just started appearing on my YouTube feeds now. It never appeared before. But I don't see the BBC or CNN, CBS. I don't see any of these entities actually picking this up and running with it. Now, is that because they are told not to do that, or is that because they have no idea where to start with it? I don't know. Maybe it might be a mix of the two. But the fact that it is not being plastered on every news station, every newspaper right by now is saying a lot, isn't it? It's saying that there is an element of control here that you are not privy to, and you will probably never be privy to.
That to me makes it sound like this is not a disclosure. It sounds like it's something that's going to get squashed, and everyone's going to forget about it.
It sounds more, yeah. Well, hopefully it doesn't. I think that it's gone too far now for it to be totally put back in the bottle. Whatever happens, even if it is covered up, the level of conspiracy now is just going to go through the roof. You're going to multiply the conspiracy theorists by 1,000 now, if you do try and cover it up. And it then goes around again. It then goes around to be disclosed again later on down the line. But the next level of disclosure will have to be something monumental. And who's to say that if these beings are real, who's to say that they're not going to take control and take the reins and say, right, we're going to
control
force
the
this.
media. They could do disclosure if they wanted to, but they haven't.
Well, they could do disclosure how they want to do
But
it,
they haven't done it.
how they want. Well, then, how do you know?
It's not
How
on
do
the
you know
BBC,
they
is
haven't
it?
done it?
And they could definitely put it on the BBC if they wanted to.
It is on the BBC, but it's very, very limited and it's very, very subtle.
What I mean is that they
Still,
can do boop,
it's on the
boop.
BBC.
Emergency has been released across the entire world as aliens have been spotted invading Yardina. They could do that tonight if they wanted to.
But that would create mass panic, and you don't want to do that. That's the approach you don't want to take. You want people to be slowly integrated into this understanding and knowledge that these individuals have on these entities and technology. How do you slowly bring people up? When you have someone that's starving, that's not eaten for 2 weeks, you don't just drag them into KFC and buy them a bargain bucket and say eat it, because it'll kill them.
Well, it would kill you anyway.
You slowly drip feed them through intravenous, and you slowly bring their body back to a level where it can handle food. Then you start introducing a little bit of liquid, soup, maybe a bit of bread, and then you start going on to the more advanced things. That's how they're going to do it with us, in regards to the UAP phenomenon, the technology, the consciousness element. We haven't even discussed the abductions. We haven't even got into that sort of element of it yet. That's the element that's going to really terrify the general populace, that you have creatures that are taking you in the middle of the night from your bed. They're sticking gadgets in you. They're sticking they're tagging you. You're looking at these strange individuals and they're talking to you through telepathy. Once you start releasing that information to the general populace, there will be elements within the general populace that will lose their minds and they will not be able to cope with it. They wouldn't be able to. So how do you do it? Let's start with the amazing spacecraft that are so cool. They go everywhere really quickly. They're all different shapes, sizes. Let's start by that, the technology. When you start showing deceased cadavers of skinny little grey creatures with massive heads and big eyes, or creatures that look like bugs, or creatures that look like reptiles, or, when you start putting that into the general populace, there are elements, a proportion, let's just say 20-30% at least. It might be more, but 20-30% that are going to freak out and just need to be put in an asylum because they just can't believe it. It works so far against their religion, their beliefs, their understanding. They are brought up in the understanding that we're the only intelligent beings in the universe, and for that paradigm change, it will just rip people's consciousness to pieces.
They've been doing
I'm sure.
sci-fi movies for longer than before Dwight D. Eisenhower's speech in '61.
But sci-fi is a genre of movie because we have genres, because not everyone's interested in watching sci-fi. Some people can't stand it. We've been drip fed, but only people that have been interested in the drip feed, in the flavour of the drip, have been engaged. There are many more people that have not been engaged in this at all. The minute in the 50s, if a Hammer horror film came on, or it's the Invasion of Mars or whatever, only a proportion of people would have liked that and really, really interested. Another proportion would have watched it and thought, it's a bit out of here. We're not really interested in it. There are so many different types of people on this planet with different interests and different problems in their life. That they're totally unaware to all of this. This is completely new. And you can say that, you can generalize that to the majority of the populace, because the majority of populace are not exposed to the level of technology and media that we are exposed to in the West. So you've got to remember that for those people, one thing might be, it'd be a complete shock. The other might be that this has been a spiritual, cultural thing that they've understood for many years. It might not even be a shock to them. So we can't predict how it's going to go down. It's going to go down well in some quarters and bad in others. What proportion of that is the majority? Who knows? Is my theory.
Okay. Well,
but yeah, I think we've gone far. I think we've gone pretty far with the discussion in regards to the disclosure element and why they're not. But I think this discussion can go on for hours, couldn't it? Really.
I think in terms of the way this disclosure is sort of gaining momentum and not at the same time is obviously it has momentum in the corridors of Washington, which is why it's interesting, I think, that there are people in Washington trying to come to, either the whole thing's just going to be squashed and gone, or it's going to be some sort of, people are going to have to start asking questions about, well, what funding has the US Navy ever had for Black Ops or whatever for stuff in space that we don't know about? We want it to be disclosed to the government, even if it's not going to be disclosed to the people. We want it disclosed to the government. What funding does the ONI have? The Office of Naval Intelligence. What funding do they have? What funding do the National Signals and whatever they're called, the NSO? What have they done about satellites? What kind of extra funding have they had in the black world? We don't need to tell the people, but we want to tell the government. Surely there's going to be questions like that being asked. The NRO.
Well, they have been asked, and David Grush has the answers, and he's going to just divulge that to them, how these special access programs are funded and how above board programs are funded, and elements of that funding is siphoned off for these black projects. Now, think how many projects are on the go at one time, hundreds, and think of the money flowing through those billions. It is illegal, but of course it's illegal. Yes, it is illegal. But how are you going to get people to admit to that? You're going to give them clemency. You're going to give them. You're going to give them
to admit to something.
What's the word?
When you've got evidence, you just go around to their house and arrest them and have a court case.
Not if you give them immunity.
I can't see why on earth would you give people immunity if it's
not if you give them immunity.
And
it's done behind closed doors, and you're giving them immunity behind closed doors. No one will ever know who you are. No one will ever know what involvement you had. They'll just now know the facts.
Who will?
Now, the cost of that is to let someone go that's done all this for years. But, that's a small price to pay if you're going to get an advancement in technology, and you're going to get an understanding and a hold
Who's
of
going to
your
get an
funding
advancement in technology?
problems. Well, the people that can benefit from it, the people that have this technology. The government, if the government truly are not in the know at all and completely oblivious to this, then they're going to get their hands on that technology, aren't they? But we already know that the government know about all this already. We already know that the government have an element of control in this in the first place.
Are you telling me that the people in these hearings are just pretending they don't know?
No, not the people in the hearings. We're talking about under the surface elements of the government that you will never see anywhere near that hearing.
The word government for that term is not really right.
I have to use a broad term, but they are within government, because you can't sign off the people's money without someone in the government signing it off.
Okay, so it sounds, so what do you think will happen in 3 years' time?
In 3 years' time, we will have a better understanding of, one, what this anti-gravitics technology is all about, in the sense that I think the general populace will generally know that there are craft that can be controlled under anti-gravitational technology. I think there will be a general understanding that there is something that exists. That's one thing. I think we will probably by then have a few pictures and videos of aliens. I don't think that we're going to have a face-to-face of aliens or whatever. I do think that the president will, or a very high-ranking member of government from a lot of countries will have to say that there is extraterrestrial intelligence engaging with the human race. I think that will come out within the next year or two. I think it has to. I think you can't put on the charade any longer to just tiptoe and dance around the facts that there are things that we really don't understand, that are physical things. They're not just in our imagination. These are physical craft. These are physical beings. There is a element of the humanity that know about them, and this is what they know, to what they will allow us to know. That's my position. I don't know.
Okay.
Yours?
I think there's absolutely no chance of that whatsoever. I think the idea that they would ever disclose anything anti-gravitic is just madness. Because you see, you've got to bear in mind that takes science into a completely different realm. People at university will not want to study freaking AI. They'll want to study anti-gravitics. You're talking about opening the ball for everybody on the street to start building stuff that will shoot them into outer space. And I just can't see that they would ever do that. There's no tax in outer space.
Where there is advancement to be had, there is always going to be a control mechanism. There will always be someone up there. Take it from an accountant. There will always be some way of that of us being able to yield control and hold the reins over this, whatever it may be. May it be by governmental means, i.e., putting regulations and so forth around these sort of technologies and people having access to them, or
See, to me,
you're never going to release.
The guy with the gas-powered car had invented a gas-powered spaceship. How would they have killed him? They got no access to him. He's gone. To me,
well, they would have stuck a bomb on his first trip, and they would have blown him up in front of everyone's seat to prove it.
This is to me the idea that you would be able to get into space off your own back. I just think is absolutely impossible, because they would never allow it.
Who said that? I don't remember saying that. I don't think you'll ever be allowed to be doing that. No one's ever going to allow you to have an anti-gravitic car that could just go anywhere at once. They're going to have borders, and they're going to have people policing the space. You got to remember, they're going to be policing space now. That's where all this money's going. They're going to have an army in space. Well, they already have. Well, they're supposedly already having a navy in space, but maybe we'll find out. Who knows? But it will be controlled and it will be policed.
Well, I just,
it has to be.
In that case, it's just difficult for me to see what order they could do disclosure in to keep any kind of control. Because if you disclose that you've had all this stuff for decades and you've already got loads of stuff in space, everyone's just going to say, "How can you claim you're in charge? You're a fascist. This isn't a democracy." The whole of America would just completely fall to pieces, because America very, very strongly believes in their democracy. If you started saying to them, "Oh yeah, we've been keeping stuff from the populace the whole time that would have saved all that oil and gas being," but they're just going to go berserk. Just imagine having Democrats versus the whole thing. It's just going to be complete madness. The whole of the infrastructure.
But UFOs aside, that's been happening anyway. UFOs aside, that has been happening anyway. They believe they have control, but they don't.
You're talking about armed people. There are hundreds.
It's the Kabuki Stadium. They have distraction.
You cannot just shut them down like you can in Britain.
Exactly. That's why they won't let go of their guns, because they know that they can't trust their government. They know they can't trust them. Why do you think they rally and they push for state freedoms in gun control? They don't want gun control. They want to have that extra insurance to guarantee that if a soldier's going to be fighting against me, I have something to fight back against.
I think what we could do to tie this up is to say that no matter who's going to be in control in 5 years' time, they are going to be effing nuts.
Pretty much. I agree on that.
We absolutely sure. Whoever's in control is going to completely out of their minds.
Yes.
Okay, well, that's an interesting little chat. I think we'll wind it up.
Right, yes. Nice speaking to you guys.
We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type of thing moving really fast. We just had something go right over the top of us that looked like a long cylindrical object that almost looked like a cruise missile type